Good morning, this is Carrie with Southern Sass Vinyl. Today we're going to be talking about setting up your new L1800 in AcroRip 10.4 to get it ready for printing. Alright, so this is what the DTG AcroRip looks like. So you'll click on it. You're going to get this anti-piracy thing. Just click on it. And so this is what, actually, hold on, 'cause this is what yours will look like, okay? And so what you're going to do, this is a personal preference. I like the views. I go into view and I hit show grid. That way you can line up your design a lot easier on here. Okay. So in layout, this is where you're going to put your paper, or I'm sorry, your film dimensions. For me, I always use 13-inch film, so mine stays at 13. Right here is where you're going to change your height, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about for that. So for here, I'm just going to pull in a design. You need to just drag and drop, okay? And that's the design. So from right here, I prefer to pull it down just a touch, and I like to give it that top inch. That just makes it where it doesn't start printing too soon and you have less smears this way. Okay? And so for this particular one, it's already sized at 12 inches, which is about standard for an adult, and that's what I usually leave it at. And so I'm going to select this box right here, and this is going to center it onto the page. Okay, so this right here tells me that the height is 12. And so what we're going to do is, because you remember, since you've removed the rollers, that you have to give it 2 inches so that the film is still in the back rollers and it doesn't slide around. So since we gave it that inch, we're going to go ahead and instead of doing 12, we're going to do it at 15. And so that's the 2 inches plus this inch up here. Okay? So the total film length is going to be 13 width by 15 height. So here's the design. This particular design, I don't need to reverse it because it doesn't have text. But if you wanted to, here's the mirror. You just click it and it flips the design for you. Okay? This design, this button right here, you can choose to go this way with it. Pretty much put it on the canvas however you want. Okay, so we're just going to leave it like it is, like this. Okay? So, you can pretty much ignore the output positions. The equal proportion, you want to leave that as true. And then you won't mess with any of this. If you're wanting to do a repeat, I'm going to show you how to do that really fast. So for this particular one, I got to take this design down smaller so that it'll fit. Okay. And so right here you have your X and your Y. So let's say I want 2 copies of this design. If you hit the Y button, the up, and if you do 2, it's going to repeat this design down here. And this is where, hang on one second, this right here is going to come into play. So I want 1 inch. Oops, that was the wrong one. Right here. So I want approximately a 1/2 inch in between the designs. Sorry. Again, you're going to ignore this. Or you can put 1, whatever you want to do. That's going to just pull, I usually just drag it down. But right here, so I've duplicated the design. Okay, so it's going to print 2 times. And right here is where you're going to put how far the spacing is. If you leave it at 0, it prints right on top of it. So I want it about a 1/2 inch apart. And then, of course, you would have to make the height of your film more. So for this particular one, let's see. That's 17. I'm going to go with 19 maybe. Yeah, because that's pretty close. Nope, I would leave it at 20. Because remember, you want these 2 inches right here. of empty space. Okay, so, but for this example, we're not going to duplicate. Oops. We're just going to leave it at 1. So we're going to come back here. I'm going to change this back to 15. I'll change the design back to 12. Again, I've got it where I center it on the film. And so here's my 2 inches. All right. So now we're going to go to the printer tab. On the printer tab, this is where you're going to set up your printer every day. And so a lot of times, I think it's usually on the Artisan 1430 and something. I don't remember what it is. Okay. But if you're using the L18, you're going to come up here and you're going to select Rip Boost under printer and under port. This is where you're going to select your printer. For me, it's USB 2. I have mine titled as DTF L1800. Okay, so that's gonna that's how you set up your printer. Check paper size should be off. For your resolution, for the best resolution and speed combo, I always do change this to 1440 by 1440. Sheet bidirection wave is off. Your white dot size, I believe the first time that you open your AcroRip, it's set at mix, but you're going to do better at medium plus large. And this is your dot size. This is what's controlling how much ink is laying down, and this is what's going to give you the best. All right. So there's your printer settings. So now let's go to color. All right. So the first time that you set up or open this, the ink channel is going to default to this yellow, black, light cyan, light magenta, magenta, cyan. And so obviously that's not the correct ink channel for the L1800. So you would just come over here to setup and you're just going to change it. And so I've already got this set up. So here, let me hit delete. Okay. All right, so for the L1800, it's going to be yellow, black, white, magenta, cyan. Okay, and then you're going to hit save. And here it is right here. Hit OK. And this is your ink channel. Now again, a lot of times when you first start out, it'll default to this, so you'll have to change it. Okay, under ink limit. For the L1800, this is too much ink. At least it is for using the L1800 and AcroRip. So I go ahead and I click here, and my setup is 14 by 14 by 14 by 8. Okay, and that's for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. On your white. So the white is going to depend on the design every single time. This particular design that I have showing on the screen, there's not any white in this. So really the only thing that we're going to be trying to do is add a little bit of white behind that yellow and some of the lighter shading on the blue. And so I'm going to leave my white set pretty low. I'm going to leave it set at 60%. If this was a design that, obviously it was a 100% white design, then you would change that to 100%. Let me see. I'm going to pull in another design just so I can kind of give you a better idea. I'm going to try to find one with a little bit more white. And this is just how I have mine set up. I like to set mine up by, my designs up by, kind of by theme. Okay. Let me see. I thought I had one in here, but I don't see it. Alright, we're going to pull on this one. Okay. So, we're going to go to layout. We're going to go ahead and give it that 1 inch. Okay. We're going to mirror it. Center it. And it's set at 11 inches. I want it at 12. So we're going to go ahead and center that again. So just based on the way that the design is, if you notice that the bounding box around it is too much, you may have to go in there and kind of edit the design and resave it. This particular design, I would resave it so that that bounding box is around the exact design instead of leaving all of this empty space over here. Okay, but we're just going to let it go for right now. So on this particular design, because of how much white is going to be needed for this lamb, I would change this probably to 70%, anywhere between 70 and 80. My normal white usage is anywhere between 60 and 80%. Again, it's based on the design, and I'll show you what I mean for the rest of that in just a second. All right, so if you're using an Icc profile, this will be default to off, but you would just click Icc profile, use, and you would just come in here and pick which Icc profile you want. I do have another video on how to load the Icc profiles into AcroRip. But for this one, I'm using Kingdom DTF film, and it is a glossy film, and so I'm going to choose this one and hit OK. All right, and that's it on the color. And again, these percentages, you'll have to play with those and just find what works best for your ink, film, printer combination. You'll have to tweak it some. Everybody that I know that uses AcroRip and uses the L1800, it's within 1 or 2% of the 14% that I use. Okay. Now let's go to white. So starting out, I recommend everybody leave this white layer generation at 100% white under any colored pixel. And the reason for that is because you really need to learn how the software works, how your printer works, and know your designs and how they're created. So what this is going to do, if you come over here to view, you'll see that this is how it's going to lay out this white. Okay, you see this space right here? AcroRip is reading this as dead space. It's saying that there's like transparencies there and that the color isn't solid. And if you look right here, you can see that. So again, this would be a design that more than likely I would probably go in there and I would duplicate it several times until I get all of this filled in. It's not going to make any of this darker. It's not going to change any of that. It's only going to make this transparency darker. Okay, but you can't just go in there and select the transparency and just scroll it up, because that's just not how it works. But that's probably what I would do, just because I don't like this transparency. Because even though it's not going to print the color right in here, it's still going to try to print this white. That's right here. Okay, and that's kind of where we're going to move on. And we're going to scroll down. So this right here is your decrease. I believe that it's defaulted to 0, and I recommend that you do it, pull it in by at least 1. This is going to contract that white. That way there's not a white bounding box around the outside of it. If you are still getting the white bounding box, or not bounding box, sorry, the white outline around your design, and it doesn't seem like it's lining up, then I recommend that you do a head alignment, because that means your head is out of alignment, and that's going to help there. And so for this particular design, I would leave it at 1 because of all this grass. Okay, because if you change it to 2, you can't really see it on the screen, but you'll be able to see a massive difference on the print itself. What it's going to do is it's going to leave part of that green without any white behind it, and you really do want that white behind it. So I usually use anywhere between 1 and 2. If it doesn't have a whole lot of fine detail on it, like let's say this particular image right here, I would choose 2. Okay. You can go ahead and select accept white only, because that's going to tell it that if you have an all white design, then you don't want it to decrease it. Okay, so let's go up here, because I want to show you this is how you should be set up, but I want to go ahead and show you about the gradient real fast, because I use gradient white. Gradient white is really good because it saves on white ink, number one. And number two, because you're using less white ink, it actually makes your transfer thinner. So, and all this does is it's going to say, hey, if there's something really dark, such as black detail, I don't need to put white underneath that. Okay? And so I don't ever leave my starting, because I don't ever use it as 0 and 0. I usually move this up anywhere between 15 and 20%. So for this design, I'm going to pull it up to 20%. And that's just going to tell it where on the shading process you want to start this gradient. So if it's at 0, anything, here's the difference, okay? So basically it's black and white. There's no, it doesn't denote any type of shading. And so if you scroll it up just a little bit, and as you move it, you'll see it, and it's going to start laying down more white. And so I usually do it anywhere, like I said, between 15 and 20%. For this particular design, I'm going to leave it at 15. And then right here, this also helps control your white. And so this right here is going to say, hey, I know that I have gradient, but I still want to add some more white into it. And so as you move it, you'll see the whiter it gets, the more white ink, the less white ink. So for this particular design, I'd probably bump this to 20, maybe 25. Yeah, right there. Okay, so for this particular design, I would leave this at 15% and 25, 26% on the bottom of it. And so everything, here's the design again. And so basically everything that's the yellow, the kind of gold, all of the blue is going to go ahead and print with the white behind it. This black right here, so if you look at the design itself, the black right here is dark black. But when you get over here into this kind of piece of turquoise, it's actually not, it's a lighter black. It's not a full dark black. And so whenever you come over here to the white, if you look at it, you'll see it's putting down just a touch of white behind this, because it's not reading it as 100% black. Whereas if you look over here at these dots, then you'll notice it's not putting white because it's reading it as 100% black. Okay? Start this one at 20%. Sometimes this little slider bar can be a little sensitive, so you just kind of got to mess with it. And then this bottom slider bar, I'm going to pull it over because I want a little bit more white than what it's giving me. So I'm going to go up here to about 40%. Yeah, 42% is close enough. Alright, so again, it's the same thing. Everywhere where it's all the dark, it's not going to print a whole lot. So it's not reading this right here as 100% black. Okay, so whenever you come over here and you look, you'll see it's kind of turning it a little bit gray. And that's because it's saying, hey, I'm still going to lay down just a little bit of white. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. Just to give you that little bit of white. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's not going to hurt anything. I mean, it's just like if you were doing 100% white. It would be laying down 100% white. But like I said, we're going to do gradient white. And so that goes back to this white ink percentage right here. When you're using gradient white, it's recommended that you can kind of use a little bit less of a percentage of the white. I'm still going to leave this at 70%. More than likely, if I was going to do this at 100% white, I would actually change this to 60%. And you won't see any change here, but it'll change how much white is being laid down by the printer. So I'm going to change it back to 70, and we're going to go back to the white. And again, we're going to change this to gradient white. And so this is how I would have this set up. Again, I strongly recommend, excuse me, that when you start out, you just leave it at 100% white until you learn your software, you learn your printer, and you kind of get an idea of how the designs work with everything. Alright, so that's it. That's how you set everything up for the first time. Again, we're going to run through it one more time real fast. So layout, this is where you, paper size, this is where you're going to lay out your film size. For your width, this is the size of your actual design. You always want to have your equal proportion as true. And everything else kind of stays the same. This only comes in the design if you're going to duplicate that design. For the printer, for the L1800, you're going to select Rip Boost. Right here is where you're going to select your port. And this is the actual printer. Check paper size is going to be off. Under setup, resolution white and resolution color will be 1440 by 1440. Feeding is sheet, speed is bidirection, wave is off. Under your ink, white dot size and color dot size are both medium plus large. Under color, make sure that you select the correct ink channel, which should be yellow, black, white, magenta, cyan. Under ink limit, you will not use this one. You're going to go ahead and do a custom. And it's 14, 14, 14, 8. Right here is your white. And you're going to do anywhere between 60 and 80% for most designs, unless it's an all white design, in which case, of course, you'll use the 100%. Under white, when you start out, it's recommended that you do 100% white under any colored pixel. Preview really doesn't do anything. It just makes this color and the white. This right here, you can set your color, like let's say you're putting this on a bright pink shirt, okay? And that's all that does, is it changes it so you can say, oh, I don't like that design on this color shirt, which is kind of handy if you're not sure what color shirt the design would look best on. We don't really mess with white ink channel because this is just saying that you have two. And so down here, under your, this is where you're going to decrease or you're going to inset your white. And for average, if you have a lot of fine detail like this, you'll use 1. If you have a kind of a solid design like this, it's best to use 2. Okay? Alright. So now let's kind of move on to the printer part of it. So once you're ready to actually print, you'll come up here, you'll come to the print tab, and you're going to come to print. And this is how you're going to check and make sure everything is how you want it set up here. But down here, you're going to hit print color first, and then white plus color. You always want to check both of these boxes, and then you'll hit print. Okay? And it's going to pop up. It's going to give you like 3 different little screens, and you're just going to have to wait until the rip is done, ripping the design, sending it to the printer. Okay? But let's say that you've already done this first one, and you come back in here to print the second one. What it's going to show, whoops. Okay? When you come in to do the second one, when you pull up your print screen, it's going to look like this. It's going to have 1 here and 0 here. AcroRip is aware of it, but they have not fixed it yet. So you'll have to uncheck this box, change this to 1, and then recheck the box again and hit print. Okay? So, I think I covered everything. Oh, your printer settings. Alright, so for your printer settings, I always just go to this little box and I type in printer. Find your printer, hit manage, and you're going to come over color. Under more options, it should still say user defined, same as document size. And then if you're using an Icc profile, I recommend that you select custom advanced ICM, and then make sure that high speed is unchecked, and then just hit OK. And your printer is ready to go. So, as always, if you have questions, please let me know. You can reach out to me at sassyvinylhtv@gmail.com or via my website at southernsassvinyl.com, and then select the Contact Us tab. Thank you so much.